Man, there were nights, shit happens. Someone can't show up to this job. I'm waking up, going
You're
to
the one going in there to
going to
clean.
work, leaving at 4 a.m. to get there at 5 a.m. to go to Carlsbad to work because I was working East Coast clients. So I'm
Hmm.
working 5 to 1. Then I'm going home, having a little bit of time with the family. Then I'm going to clean a job at 7 p.m. Then I'm going to clean a job at 11 p.m., going to bed at 2, waking up again at 4. So it didn't happen too often because we finally got some systems in place of people who knew what they were doing. But it's like, welcome to entrepreneurship, man.
The Move Entrepreneur Evolved Podcast. Get on it.
All right, we're back with another episode of the Moved Entrepreneur Evolved podcast. I'm super excited about our guest today. Just to let you know, today's episode is brought to you by Moved 30, MOVD30.com. It is a momentum program designed to create performance in entrepreneurs. Check that out. But right now, we have got an awesome guest, Mr. Michael Howard with Jet Setter, one of the leading provider aviation companies in North America. What's up, brother? How you doing?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. Let's jam out.
Dude, I'm pumped, man. I'm glad you were able to make it, man. I know we always get busy, but I appreciate you coming and hanging out with me for a while, dude. How's the
Yeah,
uh
absolutely, man.
how's the week been handling you?
It's been busy. Like we were chopping it up a minute ago, and dude, it's getting busy. It's funny because with the aviation industry, on every industry. I mean, I was in the gym industry, I was in retail, stuff like that. There's trends and there's different seasons. Same goes for us. We're kind of considered to be the slower times in January, February, and then once Easter comes around, March starts to pick up, and then summer travel, and then we get back into the holidays, and it's just Royal Rumble once we get into September, October.
Dude, let's pull this curtain back, dude, because in a lot of these episodes that we do, we try to find what's the evolution, right? Like, how do we get
Yeah.
there? Maybe some of the skill sets that you've learned. But I'm going to kind of pull back a little bit and see if you can get this, and see kind of where were you at in your life. Maybe you can identify a little of that. But you made a post a while back, said, "Shoot me your jersey orders." Menzel,
Yeah.
Mac, Clowney, now available, starting, no charger, draft picks that they won't sell, ordering tomorrow, hit my inbox. Dude, what
What
were you
year was that?
doing?
What year was
Well,
that?
take a guess, bro. I'm going to throw this at you just to see if we, what's your guess?
It's anywhere between 2005 and yesterday's post saying who needs a jersey on March 10th.
That's pretty good. So you're still crushing it. So 2014.
Okay, yeah. Dang, that's crazy. That's 9 years ago. So funny thing about jerseys is I was randomly buying jerseys in high school. Like this was the thing back then. This was when Nelly was dropping hot in here and every rapper in the game was wearing a
Mm.
jersey backwards or something like
Yep.
that.
I remember that.
And I've always been a huge sports fan. So I was like, let me get my jersey, let me get a custom one, let me get this. Where can I get it? And I had a friend in high school he's like, my dad can get jerseys, this and that. So finally I was sitting there and I was like, how do you get all these jerseys? Because he had them all over the garage. Finally, he's like, hey, I get them overseas from a vendor who basically makes the jerseys. You can't tell the difference, and I can't tell the difference. If I take a jersey of mine or what I was getting back then into the mall, say we go to a random mall, Galleria, or whatever, and compare the two, you're not going to find a difference because they're probably getting it from the same place, first of all. But when you're looking at $50 or so on my end per jersey versus 150 to 300 per jersey, everyone's going to come to you. So I was like, all right, let me find out who this vendor is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, dude, I've been buying multiple jerseys. Let me just kind of dabble in this. I've been selling things my whole life. Like my biological father lives down in Rosarito and has for since I was 12 years old. And I would go and literally buy bags of candy of like those Mexican lollipops and bring them into the States and sell them at school. And it evolved into I'm old enough now where I won't get in trouble or get suspended, but I was brass knuckles, switchblades, stuff like that. Not bringing them to school, but like being able to buy
Distributor.
them and sell them. My friend's like, "Hey, I want brass knuckles. Cool, man. I get them for $10. They're only $40. You want them? Yeah."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
look back on it. It's pretty stupid. I'm smuggling brass knuckles and harpoon guns and fireworks and stuff like
You're
that.
responsible
God,
for 22 broken jaws in the year of
exactly,
2009.
exactly. So, but then I finally got the name of the vendor when I was a senior in high school and was able to email back and forth. And getting jerseys. I was selling 10 at a time to get one free, and I was kind of selling them at cost because I was getting them at a great price. Well, great price at the time. But now I look at it and I'm pushing 250 to 300 jerseys a month. Marking it up just a little bit because I still get a free one per amount of order and stuff. So I put about 2 to 3 hours of work into it, and then the shipping method of it, people pay for shipping and stuff like that. But it's just a good source of income, especially because you have baseball players, football players, NFL players. We're in the midst of it right now. Aaron Rodgers might be going to the Jets. Derek Carr just went to the Saints. All those Derek Carr fans have Raider jerseys. They might want a Saints jersey now. Or all the Drew Brees fans who were Saints fans got a new quarterback. They might need a new Saints jersey. So there's always a lot of turnover as far as new jerseys coming in and players coming in and out with the draft picks. That's why I brought it up. Don't ask me for the draft picks because that day on 2014, I can almost guarantee it was in April. It was the day of the draft.
May
If
May
you go back and
14th.
look at that post, it was in
May
April
4th.
because
May
I
14th.
get May 14th. Okay. Anywhere between April to June 1st, people will text me, and kid you not, they'll say Bryce Young on April 27th when the draft is this year. Bryce Young has been selected first overall
Boom,
to
jersey.
whoever it
Got
is. I'll get a text 5 minutes later. Hey, can you get a Bryce Young jersey? Bro, he hasn't signed the contract yet. No. Like, give me a little bit of time. Like, but that's where that says don't ask for draft picks yet,
Yeah.
because people will ask me as soon as they see that guy walk across stage and his name called, they're asking me for those jerseys.
How do you get your clients? Is it just over the years you've just kind of met a bunch of people? Is it turned into
Everything's word of mouth. But over the years now, I used to do like, Jason, you need one jersey? Cool. I'll send you a jersey. Now, people don't even do one jerseys now. I have about 40 to 50 people who've made a business for themselves in marking up from what I give to them.
Wow.
So I'll get jersey orders of 40 or 50 for just one person, and they're reselling on their end. Because once again, I'm getting it at a great price. They're getting it at a great price. And even if they sell it for double, the client's still getting it at a great price.
Mm-hmm. And then you have a consistent flow of,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's because it's seasons. It's always like it's always like a, what's it called? A baseball season, football season, everything's different. So like my order on the 10th is a majority of baseball people. Some people are getting ready for the NBA finals that come in, I think it's in June or so. But aside from that,
did you build a system around this, or have you always just kind of ran it off of like you have 50 people, they text message you, you kind of just have this like, I don't know how to say, like, there's so many ways. And as you've, I'm sure since the beginning of this business, you evolve these processes and systems and all these different things. But in that business, did you ever escalate it to, just order everything online, or do you just keep it pretty organic?
So everything is an order online. As far as on my end with my vendor, I have spreadsheets and different type of systems on my end of who orders what, this, profit, everything like that. But to be honest with you, back in the day, it was tedious work. Like, I'm writing down on a piece of paper who wants what size, what color, this and that, checking it off when the stock list comes in. Now I have certain things that merge and a little bit of a better process, but it's literally, it's 50-50 each month. I'm like, do I really want to do this? It's only taking 2 to 3 hours of my time, but we're making this much doing this. But still, it's like, sometimes it's even tedious of just doing that 2 to 3 hours of work, where I've even thought about giving the business to a family member or something like that, just so they can have a stream of income. Because whether it's there or not, it's not going to make or break me. But it is good source of income to have coming in, just knowing that all you're doing is providing jerseys for people on that aspect.
Well, I know we were talking a minute ago how you had kind of you'd moved a little bit, and we were talking, I always make a joke in the green room, but you basically, you had told me a story how you had moved to Los Angeles, and during that time, you were doing some work, and then it had evolved you into actually working out at a crunch gym. And I think that this is really cool to hear in these stories, because business owners, I'm going to let you share the story, but to lay it up a little bit, I think that this is interesting, is because the stories that business owners have many times are they end up going to work somewhere, and then they start to see other people recognizing their work ethic or their skill set or sometimes even just their energy of being around. I mean, I don't know if you've hired people, just in a sense, if I've had people just stay with me, even in other businesses, because their energy is just so good. And
Yeah,
so as you had
absolutely.
moved over and you had discussed LA, maybe you could share the story about how you got yourself involved in Crunch and then ended up opening multiple locations here in San Diego.
Yeah. So I was telling you earlier, I went to college. I went to community college. I was so passionate about it because my parents were like, "Yeah, go to college." I was like, "Sweet." So I picked the community college out here, and I went there, and I got a sticker that said Cuyamaca College, and then I bought a Harvard University sticker. So across the back of my car it said Cuyamaca University. Kind of just a joke within the town. So I went to school for a couple. I mean, I would say a month or two, this and that. And some of the classes I just stopped going.
Dude,
I
what'd
was
you
like,
go to? What did you take?
sign language was the only class that I followed through with. That was the only class I followed through with.
I didn't mean to laugh about that. But are you
I
serious?
loved it, dude. I loved every part about it because it wasn't, we didn't write anything. We didn't have to do
Dude,
any type of writing. It was just all memorizing signs. And there was a point where I was almost fluent in sign language. I can still hold a conversation with a deaf person right now
are
and
you
talk to
serious?
someone and
That's
like sign my name
incredible.
and stuff. Like, yeah, stuff like that. I can sign my name and talk to people and have a conversation. If you don't know it, you can just spell it out for the person.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I stuck with that. The rest of it, I just stopped going, and I would find something to do in between that time because my mom thought I was still going to college.
Dude, I
Um,
took accounting at 7 a.m. One of the first things that I ever took. And I'm like, I'm taking this on. And like, dude, I probably went 3 weeks and then I wasn't.
yeah, so I stopped going, and finally, when the semester was over, my mom's like, "Hey, did you get your classes for next semester?" I was like, "No, I'm not going." I'm like, "I can't do this anymore." So they're stressing as parents, and I get it, 100%.
Yeah.
What's he going to do? He's not going to college. He doesn't have a job. We had a friend who was in construction, and they got me into fire sprinklers, like installing pipes, fire
Mm,
sprinklers. You look up, you see fire sprinklers everywhere on commercial buildings. So I worked in the shop for 2 months. They're like, it's going to take a year for you to get out into the field and actually wrench some pipe, doing the sprinkler fitter academy, becoming an apprentice, stuff like that. Well, the guy that I was linked up with, a family friend, he was very high up in that company. And he was like a longtime journeyman running multiple jobs. Within 3 months, they're like, "Hey, you're in the field on Monday." I'm like, I thought this was going to be like another
it'll be
eight,
8 months.
nine
Yeah.
months. They're like, "No, go get your Carhartts, go get a hard hat, this and that, and you're good to go on Monday." Man, it was tough. It was different. It was a whole shell shock. I've never done hard labor like that before in my life, besides like stuff around the house. I'm on boom lifts. I'm on this. I'm like, dude, what did I get into? So fast
And
forward down the road.
those guys are the same guys 40 years later trucking. Isn't that
Yes.
cool? I
Oh,
mean,
it's amazing. I
those
have
guys
so
are
much
the
respect for
dogs,
people in
man. I
the
have so much
industry and
respect for them.
construction industry.
100%.
So much respect for them. So fast
Yeah, I
forward a
do
little bit.
too.
I ended up breaking my hand. Um, I had a little bit of a surgery right here, a little plate put in and everything. And I realized I was milking it for a little bit because I was young and I'm collecting all this money just because I was making great money as a 21-year-old, 20-year
Yeah.
old. And I'm like,
20
man,
bucks an hour. Yeah.
dude, I started in the field at like 28 an hour.
Damn.
So living at home on our granny flat, which was like a 100 square foot basically, like
Yeah.
it barely fit my bed, the TV and the air conditioning I put out there, but it was like cool. Rent's only
Making
250 to stay
4,500,
at
five
home.
grand a month. Yeah. Yeah.
250 bucks my parents charged me to stay there, which was at the time I was like, man, okay, I gotta pay rent. I'm living with you guys, but they're like, no, you're an adult, do this. I was like, okay. So did that, broke my hand. Then all of a sudden I was like, I can't do this the rest of my life. I ended up getting a job at Costco. So I'm like, all right, I'm on the path right now where I don't have a college degree. I'm working at Costco. I'm making my way up the chain because I had a couple connections there too. And all of a sudden, I was like, what's like the easiest way to come up in this company and not really have to do like the most amount of work? They put me in maintenance. So I'd either take out the
Mm.
trash or go fix stuff. I'm like, I have a background of being able to fix stuff because I was not fixed up, but like I was in construction. So whatever they throw my hand, go
Yeah. You
fix
were
a
put in
light
some
bulb.
tight
Fix it.
spots to have to. Yeah. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
And I wasn't on the floor checking. I didn't want to be a checker. That wasn't my goal. But it was like, let me come up through the backside of this and become a manager throughout like around this instead of a clerk running the front, doing all that stuff. So
Yeah.
they opened up a gym near me, Crunch Fitness, the first one
Got it.
in San Diego. I ended up getting a membership, and they were like, "Hey, what do you do?" I was like, "Oh, I was shooting the shit with the owner." He's like, "Well, I was pretty high up at 24 Hour Fitness." He was basically number 2 at 24 before the big buyout back in 2003
I remember
or
that.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Mark Mastroff. And he's like, "Why don't you come work for me for a little bit?" I'm like, "No, man, I'm at Costco doing this." He's like, "How much you make there?" I told him. I said, "But managers make this much." He's like, "Well, you're not a manager yet. Why don't you come do this, this, and this?" So finally, we ended up talking. I ended up working a couple days a week there. Then I was doing really well. I was selling memberships. I mean, they kind of sold themselves, but I started selling, attaching upsells of personal
Yeah,
training on it.
for sure.
Like, man, why don't you become a manager here? How much do you make? How much does a manager make at Costco? And at the time, this is years ago, 7, 8, I was 2014, 15, something like that. I was like, they're like 55 to 60,000 as a
Hmm.
manager. In my head, that's like what I needed. I was like, this is all I need. If I have a family, this and that, I'm cool. I'm
Yeah.
single right now. I'm not married. Or I wasn't single. I was like, I'm not married yet to my wife who's now. But I was like, 60 grand, that's awesome without a college degree. He's like, hey, I could start you at 72 as a GM. I was like, well, do I start today or tomorrow? Like, I'll leave Crunch or I'll leave Costco right now.
I'll leave Costco right
So
now.
I ended up leaving Costco. I put my 2 weeks in, did Crunch for a while, ended up opening up multiple locations over a couple years, and went with that whole organization for a while. And to the point where I was making 6 figures, and I'm like, man, without a college degree, making 6 figures, this is awesome. We opened up a Crunch in Carmel Valley, which is a pretty wealthy area
Hmm.
in Northern California, or sorry, Southern California and North County. And a guy walks in, or sorry, a girl walks in. There
Well,
was a
really quick,
restaurant.
just really quick. I wanted to kind of just break this down just real quick. What was Crunch's selling points as an organization? Because I know that it was like 24 hour had 24. Orange Theory has Orange Theory. What was Crunch's selling point? Was it short workouts? What was it that their focus
They had
was?
different types of machines, and like as far as the machine rows, like a power circuit type stuff like that.
Hmm.
But it was a really low ticket. You were paying anywhere, the original smaller boxes was $9.95
Yeah.
membership,
Yeah.
which is, I always
Dang.
laughed at Planet Fitness because it's not like for someone who wants to work out there, but you see the role or the demographic they're going after is, I could pay. You have an overweight person who doesn't work out. They're like, let me get a gym membership. It's only $9.95 a month. They know they're not going to go there.
Yeah.
They know they're not going to go there. And if they had you get 7 to 10,000 members who are signing up, which they do at these Planet Fitnesses. If all those people went there, it'd be an influx. They wouldn't be able to support it. But the demographic that they go after, having pizza Mondays, having bagels, all this food out for these people, it's going to attract a little bit of people in there. But it's it's high volume for a low cost, expecting these people not to show up.
And
But the
people
Carmel
do
Valley,
like to buy those things
yes,
because people like to buy things that they can, like if someone says I'm going to lose weight and they have a gym membership because they always have access to the decision they want to make. Would you agree?
100%. And
Like it's
but the
almost
funny
like
thing
it.
is, they don't go.
Yeah. What is
They
that?
don't go, and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
don't
That's what I
go.
mean.
But
Yeah,
they can
exactly.
justify. They can justify
Yes.
it to themselves that it's nine ninety
Yes.
five a month. I'm not going to cancel it. I'm not canceling. This is only $10 a month. I'm going to start going, and they never go.
It's freedom.
Yes,
It's the ability to, it's buying access to something. And
yes,
then it's
exactly.
almost like saying I've expanded my backyard.
There you
And then
go.
you just
There
like for
you go.
$10, I could kind of go to that place and I kind of got a spot there. Okay. So this guy kind of comes in. There's always a guy, right? There's always like some mysterious person in our lives that just like pops out of nowhere. And you're like, what are
Well,
you doing
the
here?
funny thing about
It
it,
happened to me.
at first it was a girl. Lady
Mm,
walks in. She's all done up. We were connected to a restaurant. Have you seen the Crunch in Pacific Highlands Ranch?
I have not.
It used to be a West Route next to it. Very nice bar, high end. This lady walks in who looks like a Barbie doll. She's like, "Hey, I just want to look at the gym. I'm not going to buy anything." And I'm like, "Okay, let's go. Let's go look." We talked for an hour. She ended up spending $5,000 in personal training for herself. Leaves. I'm like, I love it. I just like made a good commission off of that. We're good to
Yep.
go. Hour later, this dude walks in, mid 30s. He's like, "Hey, I needed to talk to Mike." And I'm like, I'm Mike. Hey, what's up? He's like, my wife came in here. Immediate thought in my head is cancellation. I'm like, he's pissed. She spent $5,000, this and that. He's like, yeah, my wife said I needed to come meet you. You're good at talking. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's talk. You want to see the gym? Walks around, ends up talking to him probably for about 30 minutes. He spends $2,500 in personal training for himself. I'm like, man, this group, this
Pretty good day.
family, his parents just spent $7,500 in personal training. And I talked to them for maybe an hour and a half total between the two. He sets his card on the desk that just has a jet on it. And he says, hey, let's talk. I would love for you to come work for me. I'm like, I don't know who the hell this dude is, what he does. And he drives off in his Porsche. I'm like, all right. So this is kind of in my
The
head.
quintessential story, right? As he leaves, I'm watching
As
him
he
with his
leaves,
riches.
yeah. Exactly. Oh, and to top it off, it's a metal business card that when he sets it down, he drops it a little bit and it makes that.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. You just
Okay,
met
okay.
007 kind of shit.
You have my attention. So we end up going back and forth, this and that, and he tells me what he does. He charters aircraft, private jets. I'm like, okay, sweet, that's cool. At the time, Crunch was talking about getting new ownership, and they were talking about branching off, starting new brands, this and that. So I walked up to them and I was like, look, man, I've been with you guys for 7 years. I have a great salary. I would even be down to drop my salary a little bit, but I want in on the pie. I said, I have zero ownership here. I'm about to have a family. Um, I was married. I just got married at the time. And I was like, look, I need some equity. And they're like, let me think about it. They came back. They're like, we can't give you any equity. We can give you more salary. I was like, I don't want more salary. I want equity. This is kind of at the point where I was like, it's either take it or I'm out. Finally, I called the jet guy again and I was like, look, man, let me come in and let me look at some P&Ls and let me see what's going on. His first thing was like, you haven't even interviewed, but I did say you can come check it out. But you're asking me about P&Ls. I'm like, you want me to make a career change?
Yeah,
7 years
dude.
into the game, and you want me to just up and leave? He's like, all right.
Plus,
Look at this.
Plus, you've gone through this now. Like you've gone
Yes,
through this story, right? You're like, okay, now I've moved. I've gone this process.
exactly,
Is this my pattern?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
But the stakes are higher now.
Mm-hmm.
The stakes are higher now because I have a wife. I
Mm-hmm.
had my first child that no one knew about was on the way.
Mm.
And then I'm like, all right, this is going to be like a big decision. I'm making six figures now. I just bought a house. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything was like there of building that, and I was comfortable with what I had. So then I jump into it, and we look at some stuff. Some numbers looked a little funky, but some of the margins on some of the stuff was like, oh my gosh, there's money to be made here. So I sit down with him and his business partner about a week later, and I said, look, man, no one knows this, but I have a kid on the way. I said, this has to work. This is 100% has to work. Like, I have to make money. What are your goals on this? Where do you see me a year from now? Where do you see me 5 years from now? They were good at sales, man. They were good at sales because I left that meeting and I was like, when do I start?
Yeah.
The kicker was the first 3 months, you're going to learn the industry at 16.75 an hour. And I'm like, then I go into sales? They're like, yeah. And I was like, 16.75 an hour, man. Like, I don't think I've ever worked at like an hourly like that before, except for when I was like in high school, like
Yeah.
going into something like it was something crazy like that. So I was like, you know what? I need to make this jump. So I sent my resignation letter to Crunch, talked to my wife at the time, and she's heard this story a couple of times now. So it's not like a what the heck. It was a what the heck at first, but it was like, hey, babe, guess what? I got this job opportunity. They're going to match my salary for the first 3 months. And then I'm going to get into sales and I'm going to be making this much. She never knew about the 16.75 that I was really making. I was trying to ease her mind just so she wouldn't be like, no, you can't do this, this, and that. We're not going to be able to make it. Like, no, we will. We'll be good. So I ended up taking it. I'm in the industry for a little bit, learning it. A couple weeks in, just like the apprenticeship, where they said, hey, after 3 months, you're going into the field. I thought it was going to take a year. Randomly, 2.5 months into me learning the industry, one of the dudes doesn't show up. And I see the owner show up in the morning, 6 a.m. And I'm driving up to Carlsbad at the time, Palomar Airport. We're on the
Yep.
tarmac in that office.
Yep.
He's all pissed off. He's like, hey, I'm not going to say his name. He's like, so-and-so's not with the company anymore. You're in sales. Your phone's been turned over today. Man, this lady calls me my first sales call, and she's like, "Hey, how much is it to go from here to here?" I'm like, "I don't know. What like I, I just got put into sales 10 minutes ago."
How much time do I
Like,
have to figure this out?
yeah. So then I'm trying to do numbers in my head, and like she's like, "Yeah, you need
Sure.
this aircraft, this and that. It's gonna be like $100,000." And then we hang up the call, and the owner looks at me. He's like, "Probably closer to like 25, 30 grand, but hey, you're gonna learn as you go. You're gonna learn as you go." So I start learning as I go. I learned the ins and outs of the industry, different aircraft, stuff like this. Well, the culture kind of changed there as I saw a lot of turnover, and I started to see some holes with payroll and stuff like this. Certain things aren't getting paid. Certain vendors are calling who own aircraft, "Hey, this isn't getting
Mm-hmm.
paid. Taxes
Mm-hmm.
aren't getting paid," stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, something's not right. I always got my paycheck, which was cool. There were a couple times where we heard some stories and start seeing tears come in, and I'm just happy we're going to make payroll. I'm like, bro, we're making a couple 100,000 a month. How are we not going to make payroll? Like, the hell? So at the time, I've always wanted to start my own company. And my stepdad, he's been an entrepreneur for the past 25, 30 years. He's been in logistics doing freight, has his own company. He's always told me, he's like, "Come to me with a business plan. Let's do something."
Mm.
Well, while I was at Crunch, our biggest hurdle was cleaning companies. Like, we couldn't have a good cleaning company ever.
Oh, I could see that.
And
Yeah.
everyone, and it's funny. And now that I've been in the cleaning industry at the time, which I'm going to jump right into right now, is everyone hates their cleaning company. You call someone and say, "Hey, how's your cleaning company?" They fucking suck, but they get the job done. But everyone hates their cleaning company.
That's the same that the computer repair guy. It's like
Exactly.
oh, as your computer work, that damn guy couldn't fix my computer or anything.
Exactly.
And then you
Or
won't
mechanic, or
you
mechanic too, the same.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
so then I look back at it and I tell my dad on Thanksgiving 2016, 17, I said, "Hey, let's start a cleaning company." He's like, "You don't even clean your room. Why do you want a cleaning company?" I was like, "We can make money and I can get us contracts." He's like, "How?" First thing I did is I went back to Crunch because I still had a
Oh, get all the
um,
gems.
good connection with all the owners and stuff. And I said, "Hey, give me all the cleaning contracts for all 5 gyms. Let me take a look at them." We looked at all of them, undercut every single one of them, was able to get an employee who I took from the Crunch, who
Mm,
was not a Crunch employee. I put
yeah.
her on my payroll, paid her more, and gave her more hours of what she wanted. And that's kind of what started my entrepreneurship journey.
Mm.
But it wasn't like, "Hey, you just start a cleaning company and you have an employee, they go do all the work." Man, there were nights, shit happens. Someone can't show up to this job. I'm waking up, going
You're
to
the one going in there to
going to
clean.
work, leaving at 4 a.m. to get there at 5 a.m. to go to Carlsbad to work because I was working East Coast clients. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
working 5 to 1. Then I'm going home, having a little bit of time with the family. Then I'm going to clean a job at 7 p.m. Then I'm going to clean a job at 11 p.m., going to bed at 2, waking up again at 4. So it didn't happen too often because we finally got some systems in place of people who knew what they were doing. But it's like, welcome to entrepreneurship, man. You'll be working
Yep.
365 days. You're going to get those calls. Something floods. "Hey,
Yep.
come fix this. Hey, this looks like shit. Come repair it." I'm like, okay. So cleaning company started doing pretty well. I never touched a dollar of that. Everything went
Mm.
either to um, marketing, just building up that what's it called, bank account that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, I went to the owner and I was like, "Look, man, of the jet company," I said, "I see what you're doing wrong. We need to fix it on this end." He's like, "Well, if you think you can do it better, why don't you just do it yourself?" And I was like, "All right, cool, sweet. Here's my phone, here's my computer," and I was done. All my
Oh,
shit got
he kind of gave you that kind of if you think you can do it better, that kind of like
exactly,
challenging mentality. And you're like, well, maybe I can.
exactly, exactly. And he knew that I had my cleaning company going on, so he's like, "Go jump into your entrepreneurship. Go do what you want to do." Like,
Mm.
okay, cool. Following day, I opened up Jet Setter, and finally,
Now,
when we got
that's an interesting conversation because I had a question. What was it like starting a plane charter business? As I went through and I started to do some of my just due diligence and saying, okay, what's logistics on these things? I started to look at insurance, liabilities to the plane, And then I started reading through your website and saying that you actually just detach from liability, that the actual plane and the provider of the plane, they hold the insurance policy from what I understand. And so you are more or less on the outside as the broker that brokers the deal.
Correct.
And then they are responsible for delivery of the service and the quality. And then I had other further questions, but what were some of the things that you found through? I mean, that sounded so simple for everybody listening. I just started a jet company the next day, but I'm sure you had some things going.
Yeah,
What
no.
were some
So
of the hurdles that you went through in that transition? Because that's an interesting.
getting systems in place, knowing how to store my clientele, how to get quotes out, and finding everything that went into it of what I was doing at the old company, but doing it the correct way on my own. So I think honestly, the biggest hurdle was putting a schedule in place for myself. Waking up that first day of not having a boss for the rest of my life, going like, okay, well, what am I going to do today? Well, how am I going to get a lead? Wait, they were providing leads for me. Oh shit. How am I going to get this? How am I going to do? Okay, let's start writing stuff down. I went into business with my stepdad with the cleaning company, and I went in with him with the jet company. He's been in logistics for 25 years. So when he had that talk with me of like, this is simple, man. Like we're doing the same thing that I've been doing for 25 years with aircraft instead of
Logistics, you're
trucks.
just moving people.
You're moving freight. Now you're just moving people. So once he kind of dumbed it down for me and kind of eased my nerves and stuff, I was able to like brainstorm and say, okay, this is what I need, this is what I need, this is what I need, and start putting those systems in place where they all just merged together, and it started producing profits and stuff like that, and we started making money. But I used every dollar of that cleaning company to start Jet Setter. So that was
Got
the
it.
cool thing. I didn't have to take out any loans or anything like that.
You
It was
parlayed.
like,
Yeah. And then
yeah,
I'm
doing
assuming, well, I
this
don't know,
to
did you
build
sell
that.
it? Did you sell the route, or did you just say, look, we're just going to close and move on?
With the cleaning company, it was cool because I was able to transfer a lot of my contracts over to somebody who I trusted and was able to get a little bit of something off that at the beginning. And then finally, it was like I helped this girl start her cleaning company. So being able to transition it over to my baby over to her as she's growing hers, it was just more of like a friendly type of thing when we did it outside, because it was only a couple months of where we were collecting something off of it, and we wanted to make sure it was a smooth transition for our clients, because a lot of those people were first time clients. They were
Mhm.
at one point a first time client for us, but we had a couple of years with them. So it was like, hey, we're leaving, we're giving this person, we trust this person, but we're hoping they do the same job. You know what I mean? So after overviewing it for a couple months and seeing that there wasn't anything
Hiccups.
wrong, I think only one account didn't stay, and it wasn't because of that. They just had someone who was kicking at the door while we were there, and it just
Mhm.
happened to be a good smooth transition for them, where they gave that person an opportunity because they were swinging so hard when we were there.
So you took your father-in-law into this new partnership with Jet
Yeah.
Setter.
Yep.
Very
And
cool. That takes
he runs all my back end accounting, and he's our CFO. Yeah, he runs back end accounting. He sends our wires. He collects payment. He runs card for us. And at the time, it was just me and him. I was
Mm.
doing the marketing. I was fishing for the leads, but now,
What were some of the first things that you did? This was kind of a question that I was going to say, is that it was this one of those things that was difficult to get going, and then once you met the right people, like you probably started making some relationships when you were working for the other gig. But
so yeah, I had a good book of business when I left.
yeah.
Luckily for California, there's non-competes out here. We
Hmm.
just were firsthand victims, I would
Hmm.
say.
Yeah,
We,
we
we
are.
were in a 3-year lawsuit with my last employer, and
Got it.
now I'm coming fresh clean out of it because, like I said, it's California. It's a competitive state, so all the things that we were told we weren't allowed to do, um, finally is over with. But
But
it's
so
good
you're
to
saying
see.
you were allowed to do it
Oh yeah, if I was in a different state, I wouldn't have been able to do everything that I'm doing. You're not really allowed
because
to.
you're in a non-compete.
Yes,
It's an interesting
but
conversation to have. And I think I'll just real quick, I thought I'd chime in on this, that um, I've been following a lot of this Twitter and Facebook and a lot of these social media platforms and watching them transition. And do they copy each other almost to the T? over
Yeah.
and over and over again. And I'm like, where is this middle ground between patent and maybe copyrights. But there's got to be this thin line that like we all assume, the majority of people assume that you can't go do that because that person has the way that they're doing it. And I'm like, I think it was, what was it? It was a blue check that Elon Musk put on the actual Twitter, and he was going to charge him like, I think $9 to $11 or $8 to $11. Or $7 to $11, I think, depending on if you're on the Apple app. You pay $3 if you're on the Apple app or something like that. And then it was within like,
now you see Meta. Yep.
That's what I was getting at. And then all of a
Yep.
sudden you got Mark Zuckerberg, and he's like, hey, we're going to pay this and you can play this verified. And then Elon Musk is like, his comment was, it was inevitable. Yeah,
Yeah.
but not really, because you opened the door.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is that there's a lot of things, and I think this is something, and maybe this is something you deal with a business owner as well. And I share with you kind of back a little, just, I think, I was in the fashion business. I was kind of in the original days of like, we were talking about metal militia and motorcycle ride and all of that, like originality. And there was a lot of creativity that came out and things like that. There's sometimes these things that are with me that I'm like, man, I don't want to copy. Do you ever get that? You're like, I just don't want to copy. But
a lot
when you go to the next level, it's happening.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's like people, I don't know about steal their ideas, but the evolution is the actual growth into those new ideas. And so I think it's just interesting that you were able to take some things and then you weren't able to take other things.
Well, that was the main thing of why I started Jet Setter too. Is one, I learned the industry, and I give a lot of my credit of learning that industry through that company. But I learned all the wrongdoing. So when I started this company, my whole thing was, let me do all the things the right way. If they can be successful doing the wrong way, I know I can be successful doing the right way. So you do have to separate yourselves in an aspect. Like, there's hundreds of charter companies out there, but if you're going to provide a little bit better than everyone else, and you're going to separate yourself from everyone else, you're not really copying. I mean, we're offering the same service, but are you sending catering on board with welcome notes? A lot of my golfers that I fly, I'm sending them. I'm going deep into it, and I don't care, because people copy this. If you have clients and you're not in my industry, or even if you're in my industry, I'm finding out where their golf home course is. I've done this before. I called their golf coach to find out what golf club they're going to get next, what golf club they need fitted to their size, and have it in their bag when they get home. My clients are like, what the fuck? Like,
I love shit like that.
Borderline creepy, but it's like borderline like, man, this dude literally called my golf coach out of all people. I didn't just send him a bottle of alcohol. No, I got his hybrid that he's been wanting to get for the longest time sitting in his bag for his next golf round. So you got to over deliver on certain things, because we're in the service industry. We're providing the jet, but man, next time you're flying on your jet, or next time you need a jet quote, are you going to call the guy who just emailed you and said, hey, I got this price, or are you going to call the guy who put a golf club in your bag, who's on I text with them all the time. I'm good friends with a lot of the people that I fly.
I think that's a really good thing for anybody listening to this, to understand that go a little bit extra. Like, for example, I mean, you're going to probably receive it here in a couple weeks or whatever, but like, even when you come on the podcast, I send you a shirt. I try to get you involved a little bit. And, I think that some of the things that you just said is like, dig a little bit deeper. Just dig a little bit, and you'd be surprised what you can find on people. People express everything on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. You can find things that people love, and I have someone that actually came on the podcast, really cool guy. He ended up coming out, and we ended up having breakfast, and just a cool dude. And we ended up hanging out. Guy's done really well for himself. And we're sitting at breakfast. He's like, it's my birthday, man. And I'm like, man. And I'm just thinking in my head, like, the older we get, less people tell us happy birthday, because it's just, you don't get those big birthdays anymore.
Yeah.
So I came back, and, I'd gotten a card, and I saw on his social media that he loved whiskey. So I found this special whiskey, and then I went to the hotel and dropped it off. And to this day, man, my relationship with him is just so solid. And it's not kissing ass. I think what it is really involving yourself into finding something out of the ordinary, that when people think about you, they think that person went the extra mile. Or when that person grabs the club and he's like, dude, he's going to think about you, dude. Dating 101.
And that's funny. That's one thing I pride myself on, because I hear it all the time and it really never gets old. People are like, man, Mike's the best gift giver. Like I try to like go deep into what like people like, and like make sure that gift is around them. Like, man, if you like to, like, I have friends who like tequila. Man, what was the most recent gift? My buddy started a company in January, and his first month, we were pushing on him like, man, you need to start this, and this. He was waiting for like months, maybe even years. Even before I knew him, he had in his head he wanted to start. So he started January 1st, and within 15 days, he made $1,000 profit. He's of what's that? The Bullet, was that whiskey? Bourbon. Sorry, bourbon.
Yeah.
Bullet. I had a custom label for him made, had his company's name on it. First $1,000 January, so it has his name and everything, his company, all that stuff on a bottle of bourbon. He's like, dude, this is one of the best gifts I think I've ever received. And I'm like, it's something small like that, but it's like, I love just like shocking people and being like, hey, this is valuable, man. Like, but it goes into business though. Finding out
it does. Right now I'm working on one right now. When people they come through one of our programs, I'm like, how can I? Because I work with business owners and things like that. I'm like, how can I make this easy where like I can go get their logo? If anybody's listening to this, I'll probably do this, but like, how can I use a shipping company that will print this, and then on every one that somebody gets, I can maybe find a logo, and then can I throw my shirt, and when I send it to them, I put their logo on the shirt, and by doing that, immediately they're going to wear their own shirt.
100%.
They're going to wear it with my logo on it as well. And
That's
so
one. Yeah, I forget who I heard this from. It was in one of my masterminds that I was at, and they were talking about stop putting your logo on everything as a gift to someone else, because if you send them their logo, they're like, holy shit, he's thinking about me and not me just marketing towards him. He's actually caring about me right now, and he's using my logo on stuff. Like, of course, there's certain things you're going to use your logo on, but if you give to the client their logo, they're blown away.
Well, they're in a shock, right? It's like, whoa, I didn't order this, or I didn't, I didn't do that. What are some, I mean, I think that people on here, because you're dealing with, this is one thing that I was interested in asking is like, what is the thing as you're flying people? I'm sure there's levels to the game, right? There's the guy that flies every day. He's a business owner. It's just like, basically like, it's like getting in his car. And then there's the next level of people that are probably maybe sports figures, something like that. And then maybe the next level is, you have musicians probably in that same category. And then you have those people that are like, okay, we're going to go to Vegas and let's get a plane together and let's go. So they put their money in. And then there's those people in business now that there's this thing I think that happens when you fly private or whatever that is. Something happens to people. Have you noticed that? Like something happens to people when they actually like if you ever see anybody get on a Harley or you get on a Lamborghini or something, like something happens to their physiology or whatever. Do you notice that when people tend to get their first experience on like a jet plane? What is that experience like for people?
So it's funny. I always tell people we work with the 2 to 5% of the world, because the 1% own their own jet. The other 2 to 5
that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
The other 2 to 5 can afford it. Everything underneath, it's really not in the range yet of them. But I get the athletes. I work with a lot of NFL, MLB, basketball players, hockey players, who it's their form of transportation when they're not in season. It's their vacation. It's their going to see family type of stuff. The biggest influx of people that we had over the past couple of years was during COVID, the people who could afford it but have never tried it. But then they got super scared flying commercial. They got a taste of it. Once they got that taste of it, they were like,
ooh,
okay, I can afford this. I like this. And it just changes something. It's like the first time flying first class for someone who's been flying economy their whole
Coach.
life.
Yeah.
You get that first little taste of business class or first taste of first class. You never want to go back anymore.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it is with private. You kind of elevate yourself and you're like, man, I've been on this jet. It's different. I never want to do this again. I don't want to go through security again. I don't want to have to show up 3 hours again.
Yeah.
I
That's
want
what
to
I was
show up
thinking.
5 minutes, shake that pilot's hand, hand him my luggage, get on the plane, and pop a bottle of
Feel like a G.
champagne.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think that there's something that probably happens to you. It's just like, I don't know, there was a joke. It was a comedian. He's like, you guys always complain. You're like, oh man, you're up inside a plane and you're like, oh God, my Wi-Fi is not working. I'm so pissed off. And the comedian was like, are you kidding me? You're in a hunk of metal going 400, 500 miles an hour or whatever. And you're complaining about not having Wi-Fi. I always think about that because I still to this day, I don't know about you, dude. I know you're in it. It's easy to kind of but sometimes I look up these planes. I mean, you're both in San Diego, but you go to like Little Italy or something, and you sit in a restaurant, you just watch them kind of fly over, and you're like, how is this so consistent?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I know there's science, physics, great. That's fine. But still,
when I used to work up in Carlsbad at Palomar Airport, there's a little restaurant there called The Landings. I was just talking to someone about that right now. And you just sit there and eat lunch, and it's on the tarmac, and you're watching planes go every 5-6 minutes, and I'm just like, man, this is crazy. Like, not just that they're going every like this jet right here is literally about to take off and go from point A to point B. And then I start thinking in my head, like, man, I've created a business around this of helping people to get from here to there. But it's like, how? Then you start thinking about how many planes are in the air.
I know.
Man.
Dude, you ever been to Mr. A's?
Yes.
I was at Mr. A's. I was sitting up there and the sun was kind of going down. And I just was sitting there for a while having some drinks or whatever. And just because the planes come right there.
Yeah, like, you're looking at the view of them coming in. Yeah.
It's nuts. And I'm like, how are we not afraid?
That's an international airport. So there's more. It's every 3-4 minutes.
Tons. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty amazing. What's your thoughts on people flying? I know we brought this up, but during the pandemic, what are your thoughts on how people should look at flying now? What are some things that you have seen people in business? Should they make that turn because the flights are so weird right now?
Yeah. And it's funny too, because in private versus commercial, there's always issues. So like if your plane gets delayed with private, or sorry, not with private, commercial, if you ever see planes delayed, oh, they're switching planes. Oh, they're doing this. This flight got canceled. Well, that's because on the back end, there's an issue. There's a mechanical issue. The check engine light came on. That all happens in private. That all happens. Not everything goes to plan. There was one time I had 3 aircraft break down for a trip in one day. Like booked a trip, issue. Booked another jet coming from somewhere else, issue. Booked a third jet, a goddamn coming off of the runway, a bird hit and broke the windshield, issue. It always happens. It doesn't always happen, but there's always going to be an issue, and you always have to prepare for it. But as far as the pandemic, it's cool because it's starting to stabilize with our industry. It was hard because you had that influx of people who were scared to fly. They had the money, they started doing it. So you had all the regular people, then you had all the people who had the money. So you're getting double the clientele. Well, they stopped all the production on aircraft. So you only had that inventory that they had at the time.
Oh, that's right.
Fuel prices are going up. There's so many different things happening. The inventory wasn't matching the demand of aircraft or matching the demand of the clients at the time. So it was hard to find stuff. Like usually our bread and butter was like, if you need a jet, I can get you in an emergency in the air 90 minutes to 2 hours from a signed contract. So if you're like, hey, I need to be in Vegas, cool, Jason, be at the airport in 2 hours. I'll have a pilot and a plane there. Now it's like, man, you got to give me at least a week's notice, because give me a couple days notice. It's going to be hard. You're going to be paying a hefty penny to ferry something over to you that's available, that'll get you to your destination. You're paying for all that.
So what mindset should somebody start to use as an owner, as an entrepreneur? What's the mindset they should use to prepare themselves? Say, look, I'm going to start maybe flying this way. Is there, and this is something that's This happened to me. I can't remember if it was like, sounds so funny. I don't remember if it was like dog insurance or something. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, man, that's all I have to pay and I could be covered by all of that. I think that there's a barrier of entry, and this is the discussion that I think you were kind of just having, but there's this barrier of entry of getting into certain things. And I think that a chartered plane or a private, there's a lot of these things that we assume might not be right. What are some of those things that people assume that probably aren't right, that if they understood them fully, then they would use the service more often?
I think first and foremost is that you're going to get sticker shock the first time you see a real quote. You'll sit here and people will tell you, oh, you'll see the ads that pop up. It's almost as cheap as flying commercial, just if you have 7 to 10 people. That's not the case. You see the real price, and you get a little sticker shock at first. But I think the mindset of being able to fly private and get to that next level is like with anything. The first time I flew first class, the first time I'm sitting there in first class, they're handing me a hot towel, a meal and stuff. My mind like changed. I started reverse engineering in my head of how do I get to the next point in my life of where I can do this every single time?
Mm-hmm.
What steps do I have to take to get there? And then, like I said, reverse engineer. I got to go from here to get to here. It's going to cost this much. I got to start here. Okay, I need to start making this much money. How am I going to do that? Same goes for private. First time I flew private to Vegas, I had a bottle of 1942 on there. We're with some friends. We're flying. I'm like, man, I don't want this 45-minute flight to ever end. But then
Dude,
I'm sitting there.
I don't want it to end. I felt like I was there for a second.
So in my head, man, I'm like, dude, how do I get to this point where this is the reg? Like, how do I get it to where I can not blink at spending 10 to 15 grand on a flight to go to Vegas and stuff like that?
Is that what you say? Is it, do most people collectively put the price together and they say, oh, okay, I mean, what's something like from here to Vegas cost?
Depends on what type of aircraft, but I'd say the starting point, if you want to be, 10 to 15 grand round trip, San Diego. Vegas.
For 8 to 10 people?
Yeah, 8 people.
8 people.
Once you get up to like the 9 and 10, you got to use a pretty big jet. And
is that one way or would it be both?
We could do a round trip. 10 to 15 grand.
Very cool.
But it's so you're thinking in your head. I already know you're thinking in your head right now. If we get 8 people, we divide it by this, and this.
I think that's a common breakdown for people.
It is 100%. I do it all the time when I think about a Vegas trip. Who will I know that wants to throw in 1,500, 2 grand, and we can do this and this? A lot of these people are just families, man, that fly, or it's one person flying on this jet. So it's not like, hey, let me get so and so, so and so, so and so. This ticket's for the one person. They're paying this. Whether you fill it up with 8 people, 7 people, 6 people, one person, it's still the same price. So they've kind of hit that.
What was the this is kind of interesting. What was the energy like after Kobe Bryant went down?
There was, I know a lot of the back end stuff that went into that. As far as the flight plan and shouldn't have been flying that day. I actually have a friend who's a client of mine who that's his helicopter pilot, or was his helicopter pilot, and literally was posting, he was flying with him just recently. So I mean, it was kind of scary. I was heartbroken. That's the first time I've like watched interviews where I was like in tears, like I'm really crying over a celebrity, but like looking at it, I'm like, man, this is nuts. This is in my industry.
I was just gonna say it's a helicopter. It's like it wasn't brother and sister, but it was cousin for sure.
But still, man, you guys don't see. I'm on the forums left and right, and I'm in the industry. There's a lot of private stuff that I see, or runway stuff, or planes are hitting each other. They're not fatal and stuff, but like stuff does happen on that runway with commercial and private running into each other here and there. It just happened up in, I think it was Boston or New York last week. A vendor that I know of in the industry happened to get close with the commercial, and it was like, man, this stuff does happen. But as far as the Kobe Bryant thing, it was a shell shock. But then I started seeing what what they were flying in. I'm like, man, why are you flying in that fog? And I get it, it's Kobe Bryant. If you're his pilot and he says, no, I need to get there, you're gonna listen to him. But still,
from what I heard as well is that they had downed all the police helicopters, and then what they do is there is a rite of passage where a lot of these guys will go through the clouds when it's the I would say that's like setting down, I don't know, 500 aircraft or something like that, compared to somebody just going out there and doing something on their own. I think that was the mentality. It was like, oh, well, us guys can kind of do this, even though because I think they actually, what's the correct term? They downed, it's probably not the right term, but they, they stopped all flight patterns around that. Didn't they at the time? Didn't they stop people?
Oh, yeah.
There were
Everything
people not flying out.
Yeah, the FAA grounded everything.
Before. It was grounded before. Yeah. Yeah, I guess the reason I was saying that is because it was probably something that was interesting for you, because you're flying all these guys and you probably create relationships with sports figures and, people that are in the music industry, stuff like that. And they're people too, so at the end of the day, it's, I'm sure that kind of touched base with you. What would somebody that, wants to fly and they want to get a hold of you, is this San Diego? Is it they can be in San Francisco? Can they be in New York? How do they charter with you? How does somebody find you? How does that all work?
So we operate globally. As long as it's not in a war zone and I have a long enough runway to land on, I can get you to anywhere you want to go.
Wow.
A lot of people reach out to me on Instagram, just because numerous podcasts that we do, they're like, I'd rather talk to you. And I like to keep that door open to talk to the owner of the company. You don't need to go talk to my salespeople. I mean, they'll be the ones who are helping you out throughout there, but I'll be there along the way too if you want me to be. So you can reach out to me directly, Instagram, at Mike Howard 3. I'm on Facebook. I don't use Facebook too often. I use that for a lot of family stuff. Where else? You can find us on our website the number 2jetset.com, www.2jetset.com. You can type in your information on there and I can get you a quote right away. Salesperson will reach out as well. But yeah, man, if people ever have questions, I love it. I've answered 30 to 40 questions a day just in my DMs. My phone's always on. So in our industry, it's 24/7. I sleep with my phone right there on my chest, right there next to me. It's on loud. But my family knows if the phone's ringing at 2 a.m., it's someone needs something. Yeah, someone definitely needs something.
Dude, this is awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on the show, dude. And I think that this is an angle that other people, especially as business owners, there's this next little thing where they're like, okay, I want to get to the next level. And I think that kind of chartering planes and, playing the world game is something that people always wanted to do. I appreciate this, man. This was an awesome podcast, man.
That was fun.
I'll definitely have to bring you back, and maybe we'll do some war stories and share some other stories on. But dude, this is awesome, man. I appreciate you being on another episode of the Moved Entrepreneur Evolved podcast. That was awesome, man.
Sweet, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. This was another incredible episode. We did so much on this. We went from gyms, we went to jerseys, and then we ended up with the awesome chartering of planes. So, Mike, thanks a lot, man. And anybody else that watched this episode, make sure you like and subscribe. Also, go back. There's amazing other entrepreneurs that are on here. This is something like episode 85 or so. So we're on a run. So I appreciate you, Mike. And thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
If you like this episode, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just like Nike is to athletes, Moved is to entrepreneurs.